I'm Sarah Duffy. Behind me is the $2 billion Revel Casino that closed just 2 years after opening.
The governor is either misinformed and ill-advised.
A move Christie said was necessary because of mismanagement and incompetence by the city's leaders.
All because of a rather rude comment he made about Detroit.
Almost 10,000 jobs lost. The city's unemployment rate above 12%.
In a lot of ways, the gamble has certainly not paid off.
Big thumbs down to New Jersey's effort to tame Atlantic City's finances.
Listen, the mayor's acting like a petulant child.
In the past year, Atlantic City has had to take a hard look at its dependency on casinos, battle a fiscal nightmare, and watch as their elected officials differ on solutions to these problems. At the beginning of 2014, New Jersey State Governor Chris Christie stated that it was obviously a critical year for Atlantic City and progress needed to be seen. Instead, 4 of the city's 12 casinos have closed, while a 5th, Trump Entertainment's Taj Mahal, has narrowly avoided closing but remains in bankruptcy. Now the city itself is doing its best to avoid bankruptcy. Earlier this month, Atlantic City lawmakers endorsed steep budget cuts but rejected the idea of a state-appointed emergency manager in favor of local control of the city's budget. But most recently, Chris Christie has introduced former Detroit emergency manager Kevin Orr as part of an emergency management team to manage the financial situation in Atlantic City. Atlantic City is not new to hard times. Throughout its history, the city has seen its share of political gains and losses that have had ripple effects on the economics, planning, and culture of the city.
Atlantic City was founded by Dr. Jonathan Pitney with the help of General Enoch Dufty in January of 1853. Together they established a coastal city made ready for growth with the construction of highways, railroads, and docks inviting businesses and people. Atlantic City was healthy and operated lawfully until 1905, when Enoch Nucky Johnson became sheriff of Atlantic County. Nucky was the political boss that conducted business with mobsters and ran Atlantic City for over 30 years. During this time, Nucky served as sheriff, a salesman, a tax collector, secretary of the Republican Executive Committee, the director of a brewing company, Atlantic City treasurer, and a publisher for a local newspaper. Nothing in Atlantic City took place unless Nucky approved it. The Prohibition era was when Nucky reached the pinnacle of his reign. With his influence, his charisma, and his connections with mob bosses in the neighboring cities, Nucky ensured that the gambling and the unlawful sale and consumption of alcohol took place completely unenforced. During this time, tourists came from all over America to take part in the vice trades that Atlantic City had to offer. Nucky's reign came to an end when the Great Depression took effect across America. American families no longer had the money to stay and play in Atlantic City, and since Prohibition had ended, people no longer had to go to Atlantic City for a drink. In 1941, Nucky's luck ran out, and he was convicted of income tax evasion and was sent to prison. The shady style of politics that Nucky practiced set the tone for the city's politics for the next 20 years.
After Nucky Johnson was sent to prison, he was succeeded by Frank, or as he was called, Hap Farley. Farley served a record 34 years in New Jersey legislature and exercised control as boss of the Republican political machine that controlled Atlantic City between the early 1940s and 1970s. During his time in power, Farley actively promoted and was instrumental in accomplishing several projects. For example, the shore section of the Garden State Parkway, the Atlantic City Marina, the Atlantic City Racecourse, and the Atlantic City Expressway. When it was built, the Atlantic City Expressway construction was intended to coincide with the Democratic National Convention to help promote Atlantic City as a national showplace. The Democratic National Convention took place in Boardwalk Hall on August 21, 1964. Atlantic City had high hopes of the convention revitalizing the city as a convention magnet and showplace. However, This backfired, as Atlantic City was instead portrayed as a city in decay and as having an infrastructure beyond repair. Although the city was getting bad national press, vacationers still frequented the resort through the 1960s. During the early 1970s, legalizing casino gambling became a hot topic in New Jersey legislature. During his political career, Farley attempted to revitalize Atlantic City through connections to the rest of New Jersey, Philadelphia, Delaware, and New York, through creations of new highways and roadways, as well as pushing for legalized gambling in the hopes of reviving Atlantic City to be the Las Vegas of the East. Legalized gambling in New Jersey was on the ballot for voters in 1974, but was defeated with about 60% of votes cast against it. Farley, then out of the Senate, worked extensively behind the scenes with casino proponents to place a revised referendum on the ballot in 1976, this time limiting gambling to sites in Atlantic City. Immediately after the gambling legislation passed, owners of the Chalfont Haddon Hall Hotel began converting it into Resorts International, which became the first legal casino in the eastern U.S. when Governor Brendan Byrne opened it on May 26, 1978. Like many others during this time, Brendan Byrne, governor of New Jersey from 1974 to 1982, did not initially support legalized gambling in New Jersey. However, he did then support legalized gambling limited to Atlantic City. Governor Brendan Byrne signed the Casino Control Act in Atlantic City on June 2, 1977, and stated in his speech what became a famous message to the mob. "I've said it before, and I will repeat it to organized crime. Keep your filthy hands off Atlantic City. Keep the hell out of our state." Byrne instituted many strict restrictions, such as no all-night gambling, in order to crack down on the mob and show that the government was serious.
Casino gambling just for Atlantic City, to revitalize it, spur jobs, and restore its reputation. Yes, there will be problems, like making sure organized crime is kept out.
He modeled his regulatory arms, the Casino Control Commission and the Division of Gaming Enforcement, on laws in Las Vegas. Its laws and regulations became a model throughout the country. A major event that occurred late in Governor Byrne's time as governor was an FBI operation aimed at uncovering political corruption called Abscam. The 1980 operation involved giving congressmen large sums of money in exchange for allowing foreigners into the country to build and license casinos in Atlantic City.
Currently, Atlantic City has a mayor-council form of government. These individuals work with politicians at the state level. The state has voted Democrat in the last 5 presidential elections, and the current mayor of Atlantic City is the first Republican mayor in 23 years. While Don Guardian and Governor Chris Christie share many similar goals for New Jersey, including addressing crime, improving education, and stabilizing the city's budgets, the offices of mayor and governor have struggled to see eye to eye for much of the last decade. Bob Levy, elected mayor of Atlantic City in 2006, disappeared for 10 days the following year to be found in a rehab center. Levy also falsified military background credentials and consequently resigned as mayor. Obviously, Governor Jon Corzine was distressed over Levy, and in the days of his disappearance, offered support to Atlantic City. In 2012, Governor Chris Christie strongly opposed the Hurricane Sandy evacuation plan of Mayor Lorenzo Langford. The dispute became personal and resulted in name-calling on radio and television programs.
Listen, the mayor's acting like a petulant child.
I would love nothing better than that, than to confront the governor mano a mano.
Most recently, in the last few weeks, Don Guardian has expressed doubts about Governor Chris Christie's decision to appoint Kevin Orr from Detroit as Atlantic City's emergency manager. This doubt was echoed by City Council President Frank Gilliam.
I don't believe it's necessary.
State Senate President Stephen Sweeney also strongly opposed the appointment of an emergency manager in Atlantic City and declared it a sign that the governor's administration wants the resort to declare bankruptcy. In addition to political unrest, the city's recent financial troubles have also furthered the ailments that plague Atlantic City. Property values in the city have fallen 45% since 2008, while property tax rates have more than doubled in the same period. But the majority of the trouble has been at the hands of the casinos. For some time, the cure of coping with the city's financial troubles was to build more casinos, and now New Jersey lawmakers are proposing more casinos, only this time in northern Jersey. Other efforts are being made to try and right the financial ship of Atlantic City. State Senate President Stephen Sweeney said he would introduce legislation that would redirect casino tax revenue to keep the city and schools running. Yet the financial woes and political oppositions concerning the future of Atlantic City can't help but create skepticism and doubt for the citizens.
My main job, this was the breadwinner, and now don't have anything.
Working in the casino industry is a dead end?
Yes.
It seems that the citizens of Atlantic City have little voice or control over the fate of the city that they live in.
I have to do something. I have a daughter to raise, and we need health benefits, so I'm willing to do whatever I have to make sure that my family, stays afloat.
While they have the power to elect local and state politicians that do have control over the fate of the city, there are many other individuals that have a hand in that fate that the citizens never come in contact with, including business leaders, planners, and developers. Atlantic City will no longer be able to rely so heavily on the casino industry for revenue. Its only hope is to diversify its attractions and elect reliable political figures that are able to work cooperatively and efficiently. It will fall on developers and city planners to effectively design and build for these new attractions and improve engagement between the city, its inhabitants, and the natural surroundings. If Atlantic City is to avoid bankruptcy and once again become a thriving destination, it is quickly running out of time. It is important for those governing and planning the city to learn from its political history in order to capitalize on its strengths and cut loose its weaknesses. From its history, we see that corruption often leads to decline, but that strong leadership produces economic growth. We also see that political legislation or infrastructural development, despite even the best of intentions, can only be so successful in isolation, but really require master planning and cooperation. Finally, we see that stagnation in the industry of a city can be harmful. When one major industry starts to decline or experience growing competition, other industries or innovations should be pursued. But perhaps our best piece of advice comes from one of Atlantic City's most notable figures, Nucky Johnson. We have whiskey, wine, women, song, and slot machines. I won't deny it, and I won't apologize for it. If the majority of the people didn't want them, they wouldn't be profitable, and they would not exist. The fact that they do exist proves to me that the people want them. In other words, law and policymakers should turn an attentive ear to the people that they represent and want to attract. If Atlantic City politicians can determine the wants of tourists and its residents, they may be able to once again build one of the greatest destination cities in the country.